What is up, all my ex-drinking buddies? Brennan here. Just wanted to get in at the top of the show, say thank you so much for listening. Thank you to everyone who came out to the going away shows, the Farewell to Florida tour, officially over, putting it in the rear view. Thank you again, everybody, for listening. Subscribe, rate, and review wherever you get your podcast. That really helps us out. Also, if you want to really support the show, you can subscribe on Patreon. Patreon.com/Brennan Tassif. Check out the merch store, BrennanTComedy.com/merch store. I know you're going to love this episode this week. Return of a favorite, Daisy Tackett, Tackett Tuesday, Tackett Attack. Can't thank you all enough for all your support. Let's get going.
Grab me a beer and grab him a coke. We bout to sit for an hour, bullshit and tell jokes. And please don't mix it up, cause he done sobered up. Brennan T Comedy on your social media feeds. And Brennan Tassif is your ex-drinking buddy. Brennan Tassif is your ex-drinking buddy. Brennan Tassif is your ex-drinking buddy. Brennan Tassif is your ex-drinking buddy.
What's going on, everybody? Welcome into another edition of Brennan Tassif is your ex-drinking buddy. I'm your host, Brennan Tassif. If you are new to the show, I'll give you a quick rundown of the show. So I used to be everyone's favorite drinking buddy, party animal, you name it. Doing a lot of drugs, getting in a lot of trouble, drinking all the booze. Now I am sober, but it is still one of my favorite things to do, to hang out with a friend and reminisce about those old days, be it drinking, drugs, parties, getting in trouble, cops, all sorts of fun stuff. I will always be joined by a guest. This week is no different. I am joined by the return of Jacksonville's #1 comedian, as according to the 904, Daisy Tackett.
Hello. I'm excited to be here.
What was it? Best in the 904 by Void Magazine?
It was, #1 in the 904 Void Magazine. They just printed my name in it. No pictures or anything. Just
boom. #1,
but
baby.
It counts.
It totally counts. Plug everything up front. Your Twitter handle.
You can follow me on every social media. I've got TikTok, Instagram, Twitter, and the handle is @FatSteveBuscemi. So @FatSteveBuscemi on any social network, and you'll find me.
Boom. I love it. @FatSteveBuscemi.
Yeah.
So, Daisy, I'm very excited to have you on. Because I am moving to New York City, as the listeners know. Farewell to Florida tour is fully underway. Actually, almost over.
Almost
Only
over.
one date left. If you're hearing this on Patreon when it comes out, and if you are a regular subscriber, the tour's over. Back to my shithead regular job, and then the move coming up. So thank you to everyone who did come out for the tour, and fuck all of you who promised you would and then did not. But you did, we talked about it last time you were on the show. You did live in New York City. You went to NYU.
Yes.
So
I did not get into Columbia.
Okay. You applied to Columbia?
Yeah.
Okay. Did you tell me that last time?
No, I don't think so.
But I did, apropos to the move and everything, and me just getting back from the city yesterday. I wanted to have you on. We're going to get into a couple of stories and everything, but I did want to get your experience just as a person living in New York City that's not from New York City. Because what I noticed is, and we were talking about this before we came on, but the idea of moving to New York is super romantic and fun, and there's a lot of energy that comes with that. Even going up there to visit thinking like, oh, one day I'm going to live here. Like,
yeah.
That's cool. But now the process of actually trying to move up there has turned this whole experience into a hellscape of epic proportion.
It's a trap. I mean, it's like it's fun to go.
It's a trap.
It's
Sorry,
a trap.
Star Wars.
It's fun to go and visit for a couple weeks, even like 2 or 3 weeks. An extended visit is like super fun. And then when you move there, you're like, I have no money. Everything is expensive. Like, for example, I went and visited. I had a great time. I was like, this is it. I'm moving.
That's exactly what happened to me.
I'm so excited. And then I get there, and on my first day of classes, I went and got a bagel and sat in Washington Square Park. And I was like, look at me. I'm so hip and cool. And then I look over, and there's like 2 homeless guys like masturbating in front of each other. And it's like 7 a.m. And I was like, well, okay. I mean, I guess.
There we go.
And then 2 days later, I saw my first super rat. So it's
Okay.
like a bunch of rats with their tails tied together in like a rat swarm,
Oh my God.
a rat king, if you will.
Or a queen.
Yeah, I believe the preferred nomenclature is rat king. But yeah, then you're kind of like, oh, it smells bad. And
Yeah. Well, I want to get into, so everyone listening, relax. We'll get to some crazy stories a little later, but this is interesting to me and to anyone listening who, I know I've got some listeners in certain parts of the country where I've been, where I lived, and everyone's like, you're from Florida. That's so cool. And I'm like, you can move. Like, you don't have to stay here.
right.
And that's something I always tell to everybody because I'm from Florida, so I could always come back. Like, there was always a place for me to rest my head. Like, there was always a place, like my mom's house or my dad. There was always somewhere where I could store my shit. There was always something to come back to. But now moving to the New York City, where I don't know anybody, like Savanna and I are going up there pretty much blind. Like, I did just go up there and viewed a god-awful amount of apartments, and all of which had glaring holes. Mm-hmm. Either they're up a 5-story walk-up, or they're not near a subway, or they don't allow pets, or there's this, or there's always something really wrong. Yeah. And what I noticed is, maybe it's not as much fun uprooting your entire life and going somewhere. So I wanted to know, like, that whole, so you said you visited New York and you're like, this is where I want to be. I want to go to school in New York. Columbia said no, so you said, all right, NYU, why not? How did that whole process go? Just if you want to summarize it from, because you're originally from the South.
Yeah, I'm originally from Texas. But we've moved, I've moved personally probably 20 times in my life. But my dad's moved like 50 times. So moving was never weird. Like, that part of it wasn't weird for me. Like, the idea of uprooting and going to a whole new city, it's like, okay, that
was standard for you.
That's par for the course. But what there was definitely a little bit of a culture shock. I think, people say this all the time, and it's really true, but people in New York they're not nice, but they are kind.
Yeah.
So, like one example of that, I was walking my dog Marv. He slips out of his harness. We're on second and second. He's sprinting around, and like everyone, it was like the first warm day of the spring. Everyone's out. Everyone drops what they're doing. They like block cars on the road. They're trying to get my dog. They're like feeding him chips from the cafe on the corner. Like, they're trying to like corral my dog for me.
Yeah.
And like people are picking up my purse and like my stuff that flew everywhere. And like, that's like a very kind thing to do. But then they're all doing it with kind of this like, fuck you attitude on their face.
What the fuck is, yeah.
Like, get it together, bitch.
That's
but
what I
here's your
noticed
dog.
too, is that I always, because whenever I have guests in the restaurant that come in that are from up north, I'm always like, God, they're not rude, but they're not polite.
Yeah,
either.
they're not like that fake syrupy friendly.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So in the Southern hospitality, it's a very real thing, and I never noticed it because I grew up in Florida my whole life, so I've always kind of been around that genuine, like, hey, how y'all doing? Yeah, what's mine is yours. Welcome in. Like, how you doing? And then when I would have guests from up north, or when I'd go to visit New York, I was telling you the story about how I went into the wrong building, and the doorman was just like, nope.
Get out.
And
You're wrong.
Yeah, I was like, no, I'm here to view an apartment. He goes, not in this building, you're not. And I looked disheveled, and I was on my way to the airport. So, but again, it wasn't like mean, but he was also just very direct.
It's also like, couldn't you have been a touch nicer?
Exactly. But that's that weird thing. Whereas if someone said like, okay, on paper, list how he was mean, and it's like, well, I guess he wasn't mean. He was stern. But he wasn't like a dick.
Right. But it's just weird.
But I guess that's like par for the, like you said, like up north, that's just how people are.
Yeah.
Where like if you flick your cigarette butt out, I learned this from personal experience. If you just flick your cigarette butt out onto the sidewalk, people will go like, hey man, like, come on, not in my city. And I was like, huh? And so I'm just like, oh, these people like give a shit about like their home, obviously. But it's not like one of those bubbly, atmospheric type things. Yeah. Which is a culture shock, I guess, to say the least. Always being around people who try to do everything they can to make sure you're comfortable. Like, they don't give a shit. So I didn't know, as a college-aged person, you said moving was something you guys were used to, that you had no problem with that. But after you went to visit and you're like, here, I'm going. And then, you know, you get up there. What was the process of just like getting your stuff up there? Did you load up a car? Did you like get a moving company? Like,
so I actually,
because these are logistical things people don't even think about until you're looking at an apartment and you go, how the fuck am I going to get my stuff not only up to New York, but then up these stairs?
Right. So my first move, I was in a dorm there.
Okay.
So I didn't have to bring any like furniture. So my dad and I loaded up like 4 suitcases with my stuff and just brought it. And then I went and studied abroad in Germany for the first half of senior year. And when I came back, I subletted an apartment. So I didn't have to get any furniture. But we had a friend who lives in New Jersey, and I stored all my stuff in their garage.
Okay.
Basically. And then I got it back, and I had to like, you know, drive a minivan through the Hudson Tunnel.
That sounds miserable.
During like a horrible, it was during that, there was like this horrible blizzard.
Yeah, I remember.
In 2018.
Yeah.
And it was during that to get all my stuff out of a barn in New Jersey, essentially. But, you know, since I was only on the second floor, it wasn't like that bad to carry stuff up. There were some melodramatics with one of my parents carrying things up the stairs.
I'm going to take a guess. I know who that is.
But it ended up being, you know, once I was settled, it was pretty cool. Taking everything back, that was the nightmare for me. So when I graduated, you know, I had gotten a job with a campaign in New Jersey, and I was going to try to stay in the apartment for a couple more months and then try to find something maybe in New Jersey after. But then, you know, it was my grandmother had Alzheimer's, and it was like, we kind of need you to come home because like we don't know how much longer and we need you to help. And I was like, okay, I guess I'm not going to do this unpaid internship and pay a ton of money to live in this apartment.
Yeah.
So we loaded up a minivan of stuff and drove it home from New York to Jacksonville.
Oh, God.
And then my grandma died 2 days later.
You got there just in time.
So just in time. And then I ended up spending that whole summer like doing coaching gigs and helping prep for the estate sale and stuff. Yeah. But I didn't even unpack the stuff from college until maybe a year ago.
Okay.
So it obviously
just sat in boxes.
It just sat in boxes because I was like, I'm going to leave.
Yeah.
I'm going to go back to New York.
This might sound incredibly morbid, but don't you hate it when the timing works out like that?
Yeah. I mean, it was definitely the right decision.
I mean, it's the right decision to come back, but then after 2 days, you're kind of like, well, glad I canceled every plan that I had for 48 hours.
Yeah.
I think about that all the time. Like when something happens, I'm always like, is it like, what's really gonna, like, what's happening?
Right. It was definitely, and it was just stressful because, you know, my whole family was here and we all moved to Jacksonville in the first place to take care of her. So it was, you know, it was just kind of there was this weird energy in the air. But yeah, I mean, my pro tip for moving now, we have so many plastic storage bins. Yeah. Because we move so much. I don't even use cardboard boxes. We just use
the plastic storage bins.
Plastic storage bins.
Okay, I'm gonna have to write that down.
With lids, it's so easy to move.
Because then you can just stack them all super easy. Yeah, that's my big issue now. Is, I mean, you've seen my house. It's our house. It's not small, and I'm not like being braggadocious, but it's like a standard 3-bedroom, 2-bathroom house that we rent. And so our rent's going to be about $800 more a month, which is awesome for like a quarter of the space. Yeah.
I mean, that's kind of right now moving, right? Like my parents' house is it's like 4 bedrooms, 4 bathrooms, 5 bedrooms.
Wow.
It's like a, 3,000 square foot house. And then I'm trying to pack all of my stuff and then some of my dad's stuff into my 957 square foot.
Your new house.
2 beds, 1 bath house with no shed yet. So it's been fun.
Yeah, it was it's weird. I was thinking about it today actually because I knew you were going to come over, and I said this earlier to Savanna. I was like, I understand now why people don't leave. Like, I would say it with a smug-ass look on my face and my nose in the air, like, oh, you guys can just leave Oklahoma City. Like, you don't have to live here.
Yeah.
And now I'm like, you fucking ignorant slut.
Well, okay, I don't know if you remember this when we were at CBD a couple weeks ago and, like, a bunch of bitches from high school walked in.
Yeah.
And we were talking outside, and I was like, ugh, what is this, a high school reunion or something? And then just some bitch I didn't know was sitting there, and she's like, well, that's what happens when you don't leave your hometown.
Wow.
But like she said it in a way where it's like, obviously, and a lot of male comics do this too, where they try to be like overly jocular, or like they're kind of ragging on me because they think that we're friends, or like that's how we're going to build a friendship. And I literally just turned to her and I gave her this look, and then you went inside because I think you were there's conflict. And then she was like, well, I'm just, you should move. And it's like, I just bought a house here. And I look at her and I just go, you're rude. And I just...
That's another thing too, though, because you've moved all over the country. You know, you went to Kansas, you went to NYU, you studied abroad. Like,
yeah, well, and her being like, oh, that's why you have to leave your hometown. It's like, I'm not in my hometown.
You lived in Dallas? Yeah, you're from Texas originally?
I used to live in Alabama. I've lived in, so many different places. It just pissed me off.
Yeah, I could imagine. And that's the thing too, is so, like I said, like I just thought, like, you can just pick up and leave. And when I was single, or when I was drinking and using and stuff, like I could take a duffel. Like there's 6 now with the show and having the laptop and everything. There's like 12 things that I have to take with me.
Yeah,
my bowl game jersey is one of them. I like to take my books and my notes and everything from college. I don't know why I still hang on to all this stuff.
No, I do too. I have all my textbooks. And be like, yeah.
Oh, I used to like know some shit.
Right.
Like I've read a case study I wrote, like obviously like almost 10 years ago, and I reread it like a week ago, and I was like, damn, this boy used to be smart as hell.
Right.
But like that stuff and like my laptop, and that's it, and my Xbox and my TV, like those are like I could fit all of that stuff in my Camry.
Yeah. And
so it's one of those things where I just. And when Savanna and I, when tensions would run high about the move, I'd be like, "Well, I'm going in July. Like I've got almost $5,000 saved. If I moved up there by myself and just rented a room in the middle of fucking like the East Harlem or like somewhere like that, I could rent a room for $800 a month. It'd be a shoebox, but I don't give a shit." And like she was like, "No, we're moving together, or we might as well just break." And like it would turn in because tensions run high when you're doing something like this.
No, the moving of stuff. Like physically dredging up items, like dredges up so much other shit.
Yeah.
And like feelings and like problems. Like that's just what I've come to realize is like as I'm like digging through stuff. It's like, because it's like stuff from your past. Like, there's like physical items, and then there's like pictures, and there's notebooks, and like, yeah, it's like I'm thumbing through like a journal I had when I was in college, and I'm like, nope, in the trash. Yeah. Uninterested.
Well, that's the other thing too, is so I'm very disconnected when it comes to stuff. Mm-hmm. It's weird because I'm super nostalgic, but I'm the kind of person where like if my house burned down, I'd be like, well, I just got to get a new laptop and a new Xbox. Like I'll miss the other stuff, but it's because when I was in college and I was drinking real heavily, and like I would move out on the same day that like our lease was up, on the same day I was renewing, because I didn't have the money. Yeah. So it's like, well, I can't just rent an apartment for a month and like slowly move my stuff in. Yeah. Like that was not an option. Like it's like, okay, my lease ends on the 31st, so I need to get a new place on like the 31st or the 1st or whatever it is. And so I would constantly just throw away heaps of stuff when I was moving, because I was like, I don't have time, like, and just throw it away. So I don't really have a problem with that. But Savanna has held on to a lot of stuff from her childhood. Like there's so much stuff in this house that's never seen the light of day. Yeah. But we're not going to throw it away, because if she wants it, it's hers. So we're going to get a storage unit probably in Jersey or something like that. But it's just, like you said, this whole act of dredging up all these things. And then it's when you're in the middle of it, like when I got 3 hours of sleep, got up at 4:00, got to the airport at 6, flight was delayed for like an hour and a half, landed in New York, then you have to fucking figure out how to get from JFK. Because when you fly into the city, you're not flying into the city. You're flying into Queens. And you have to figure out how to get to Queens to Manhattan. Yeah. So I was running late for my first showing, so I took an Uber. $87. Yeah. For an Uber.
That's why you got to get the taxi, because it's
a flat rate.
Flat rate.
I didn't even think about that. But then I got into the city.
flying to Newark. It's usually cheaper, and the Ubers are cheaper.
That's what we did. Yeah, that's what we did the last time we went just to view apartments.
It's a hot tip for listeners.
Yeah, if you go from Orlando to Newark, it's $160 round trip.
Oh yeah, no, I regularly will not fly out of Jacksonville because it is so expensive.
This one, Jacksonville to New York City, off days, all that kind of shit, whatever. Yeah. It was like $280 round trip.
Yeah, but then sometimes if you just drive, like when I went to Germany, like I could have flown from like Jacksonville to New York City to Berlin or whatever, and it was like $2,000. But like Orlando to Frankfurt to Berlin was like, $800.
Yeah, it's insane because Orlando's such a massive airport.
Yeah.
And they've got other airlines like Frontier and Spirit and stuff. So if you're flying within the country.
I took Air Berlin, and then when I was in Germany about 2 weeks before I had to come home, airline went out of business.
Oh, wow.
So I had to like scramble to find a flight. And thankfully I cried on the phone to the people at American Airlines, and they bumped me up to first class.
Get the fuck out of here.
So I had a first class international flight it was Berlin to London, London to Charlotte, Charlotte to Jacksonville.
All first class the whole way?
All first class.
Did you get hammered?
Yes. And I was the only...
Tell that story.
Well, okay. So the flight attendant was like this older woman.
Wait. No. We're going to bring it. You're getting on the plane. They're like boarding group 1. And you're like, I'm fucking group 1.
Yeah.
Did you get on the plane? Was it like international flights? Those are big planes. Those are nice planes.
Yeah.
Like,
So give
me the setup. What's happening?
The first flight. So Berlin to London. It was kind of like it was technically a British Airways flight. So all the flight attendants were just like fucking obnoxious British people.
Hello, love.
Oh, shut up. I hate it. I hate it so much. I do not like the British. I am Anglophobic, as someone once accused me in a Facebook group. Anyways, so I'm just and it's kind of set up like a standard like American domestic flight for that one from Berlin to London, because it was only like a couple hours. So it's like, the first 3 rows are first class seats, and I was able to get my friend bumped up too.
Okay.
Because he was like, I hate Germany and I want to leave right fucking now, and they like overbooked the flight and they were going to kick him off, and I was like, no, he's with me. So then he gets bumped up to first class. I'm just sharing it,
Yeah, spreading the wealth.
Yeah, and we had like 3 glasses of champagne on that leg,
because they give you drinks right when you sit, don't they? Like I've heard all these stories.
Yeah, it was a little different on that one, and I think the British guy did not like me or my friend.
Your vibe.
Well, because like I'm from Texas, he's from Oklahoma, so we're like being loud and southern, and then they're just like, no.
Yeah. That's why we beat you, fucking assholes.
I was like, and there's a reason why we are not of the same country anymore.
Hey-o.
Yeah, so, and we had like a full like English breakfast, which is disgusting, by the way. The English do not know what a breakfast is.
The great Tom Rhodes, very funny comedian, says the Germans should have dropped cookbooks on you motherfuckers.
Seriously. Oh my God. It's so bad. But I had like 3 glasses of champagne, and then with the first class flight, so then I land, then I have about a 6-hour layover before my flight from London to Charlotte.
How long is that flight, London to Charlotte?
That was 10 hours.
Okay, so this is going to be the big plane, heavy duty.
Yeah,
Here
pods.
We go.
I had pods. But then for my 6-hour layover, I got into like the Admirals Club.
Yeah.
So, I'm dressed like a 22-year-old at an airport. So I'm wearing like a cropped sweatshirt, leggings. I've got on like, some like busted Vans, it's just a mess. And it's like, I just left Berlin, and I'm also like hungover from the night before.
And you're 3 glasses of champagne in.
Yeah. And it's like because our last night in Berlin, we all got like super drunk and high, and we were up till like 3 a.m. And
I love how you were like, I don't know if I have any stories. And then this is now trending into 3 different stories we're going to talk about. We'll get back to the last night in Berlin.
Okay. Yeah. No, that's actually a good one. I took my shirt off and was walking around in a bra at the
party. We're going to get back to that one. So you're in the Admirals Club. You look like just a hot mess.
And then everyone else is like in suits.
Oh, yeah.
And ties. And
it's funny whenever comedians talk about getting bumped up, because they're like, yeah, what do? You're a banker? You trade funds? You're in the stock market? Dick jokes right here, baby. Dick jokes.
Yeah, no, it's like, some guy who's like very clearly like some sort of C-suite, executive. And I'm like, I cried on the phone and they felt bad for me. And that's how I'm here. But yeah, so it's like, just like free food. I'm like sitting in the chair, like all weird, like a 22-year-old woman at an airport would do. And then everyone else is like sitting very nicely at their little tables with their laptops. My laptop.
And you're like curled up in the chair.
And then like my laptop has a sticker that says Ted Cruz is the Zodiac Killer on it. And like, I'm just doing my thing. And, I've got like, a bunch, like a blanket and, just, it's bad. It's
you
just
look
a
like
mess.
you're a homeless person in the Admirals Club.
Yes. And at this point I was like, okay, maybe I'll try to take a nap or something. So I didn't drink too much, but I did eat a shit ton of cheese because they had cheese cubes. Yeah. So I took the whole platter over to my seat because I was like, I am entitled to these cheese cubes. Then I get on the flight to
10 hours.
10-hour flight, and it's the one with pods.
Yeah, what is it? Explain this to me, because a friend of mine's a flight attendant, and sometimes she'll take pictures on the plane and post them on Instagram.
Yeah.
And I'm always like, because I'm always on these fucking 2.5-hour domestic flights, and anything under like 3 or 4 hours, you don't get like a cool, sick, big ass plane. You just get garbage. Like connector planes that fit like they only have 4 rows like total.
Right.
So what is this? Is this like a gigantic?
So
massive...
basically, it's like kind of like a little Jetsons pod almost. So it's a seat that has kind of like a cover. Mm-hmm. And you've got a whole lot of legroom, and it's probably as long as this table is like your amount of space. And
holy shit!
Your like screen is where your screen is, and then you can like press a button and it'll lay down flat into a bed, and you can sleep in it. And like the pack, it's like it's a Calvin Klein branded like leather pack that has like toothbrush and toothpaste and a face mask and an eye mask.
On these big planes, there's not very much turbulence, right?
I mean, I didn't feel anything.
Because they normally, like, planes are a lot like boats. Like, the bigger it is, the less you feel what's going on around you.
Yeah.
Because I fly, like I said, a lot of those little connector planes, and it's like a fucking...
Yeah, the American...
Oh, yeah, that one.
The little one with just, like, 1 seat, 2 seat.
Yeah.
It's like 20 rows long.
Yeah.
Those you think you're going to die the whole time?
Yeah, I feel like I'm going to see an Independence Day.
Yeah.
Like, kick the tires and light the fires, Big Daddy. Here we go.
Like, this could turn into a lost scenario at any point in time. Yeah.
Yeah, very much so. But I've never been, I can't remember. I think I've flown on a couple of those really big ones, like when they were used as connectors for some reason. Like at a bigger airports like Orlando or Charlotte, sometimes if you have a quick flight, you'll be on those big planes because everyone needs to connect. Yeah. But very rarely am I on those. I'm always on those little rinky-dink ones. So when you got on there, was there a bar on it?
No. So this one was where first and business class were the same. It's only business/first and then economy. Yeah. So you go in, there's probably 30 pods. And lots of aisle space. I mean, all the pods are kind of like separated and staggered.
Oh, all the pods are separated. So it's not like 3 next to each other.
You're not connected to anybody. You can't even, while I'm sitting in my pod, I can't see another person. The pods are like blocked out.
Awesome.
And I am the only woman in this area because we all boarded at the same time. Yeah. And I'm like, I am the only woman. And I'm also the only person not wearing a suit. So I sit down and immediately I'm like, I will have a beverage. And the flight attendant, she ended up being from Dallas because it's an American and they're hubbed out of Dallas. And
God, I wonder how long she had to be a flight attendant to get that gig.
Oh, sweet
gig. The first class flight attendant coming out of Berlin or coming out of London.
Yeah. And like we end up talking and like, her daughter knows people that I know.
Of course.
And like, I'm having a conversation with her because everyone else is being kind of a dick to her. So I'm like, and so she just keeps bringing me wine, champagne. Then she keeps bringing me dessert. So we get a meal.
Yeah.
It was delicious. People are like, airplane food. No, this was tasty. Although apparently the reason why people think airplane food is bad is at a certain elevation, your taste buds cannot sense things as well.
Oh, really?
And that's why it's also easier to get drunk on a plane because the lack of oxygen.
Oh, it fucks with your brain.
Yeah. So I probably had like 6 glasses of champagne pre-meal.
Yeah.
And then I passed out and I slept while watching Moana. And then she brought me like 4 desserts.
Yeah.
So it was just like a nice
It was a nice time.
It was a nice time.
Just to decompress.
Yeah, it was good. And I was just telling her we were talking about Berlin and then Dallas stuff, and it was fun. And then I landed. I had like a 20-minute amount of time to get through.
I've been in that.
Because I had to go through customs every single time, right?
Oh, shit.
So I had to go through customs.
You don't get like a little like
because I was landing
badge
in
the
a
first
different
time?
country each time.
Oh,
so I
yeah.
land in Berlin. I land in London, have to go through customs. Then I land in the United States, and I have to go through customs at Charlotte. Then finally, I'm in Charlotte, and you have to reclaim your bags each time and recheck them, even though I was on the same airline or whatever. It's just like a customs thing. So then I land finally in Charlotte, and I have like a 1-hour flight from Charlotte to Jacksonville. I get in first class. They hand you like a bag of snacks. I mean, I was like, this is a fucking downgrade from what I was just on. It sucks. And they hand me a giant bag of snacks, like, Smart Pop and like graham crackers and stuff. I hold it, and then I immediately like clunk forward and fall and like pass out and sleep the entire flight.
Okay.
And everyone has left the plane, and they have to shake me awake because I'm so tired.
That is something I'm so fearful of, is falling. Like, I can't really sleep on planes because of my anxiety and my being a control freak. Like, every time the plane just like does a little like, I'm like, what? We're dying.
Right. Well, that's how I normally am too. But I was just so tired because I got no sleep in the last night in Berlin. Then I'm like not really sleeping on the plane because I'm drunk, and then I'm, eating my fancy foods and my desserts, and then I get home, and the first thing I actually had my dad bring me, because the one thing I missed the most while I was in Germany was a good IPA. They do not have IPAs in Germany.
Really?
I mean, like sometimes, but that's like it's just
not.
That's not like here where there's like all these like craft beers and like all these different things. So he brought me a 4-pack of the Dogfish Head 90-minute IPA, and I drank it in the car on the way home.
There you go. Just keep the party going.
And then I went to sleep and slept for, I think, like 16 hours.
Jesus. My thing that I realized, the most fun I ever had flying was that short window between turning 21, having money to drink on a plane, and having somewhere to go.
Yeah.
Like, that was because I was always
we also stopped at Hurricanes because I wanted wings.
Okay.
I was like, this is my return to Jacksonville. I am having
Wings
chicken
and
wings and a beer.
That was the thing, though, is like I was always so terrified to fly that when I could get drunk on planes, I loved it. It was like, I was like, we're up in the air, we're going. Like, no, I didn't have any fear. But then when you're like, drink the way I drank and like do drugs and get in trouble and everything, you don't really have anywhere to go.
Right.
Like, I don't have money to go on trips. I'm not at this point. I think I was out of comedy because I was in and out for so long. And I think at this point I'm out. And even if I'm doing comedy, I'm not like booking flights to New York City to go see. Like, I don't have the money for that because I'm spending it all on, like, I'm not working as much as I could because I want to get drunk all the time.
Yeah.
So it was weird. I only flew from the age of like 21 where I could drink at an airport and drink on a plane to the age of like 26. I maybe only flew like twice.
Yeah.
And it was such a waste of like a prime time to fly.
Yeah.
And now that I'm sober, it's just like I just have to deal with fucking being anxious this entire time.
Yeah.
And it's the worst.
It really, we've been on planes. I mean, my first plane trip, I was probably 18 months old. I mean,
same thing. Yeah. When I was a kid, I flew all the time.
I flew all the time because my dad used to have he flew so much. He had like the Southwest, free passenger, like you get like a companion pass to bring like a free person on your flights
crazy.
with you. He had that for like a year and a half, I think, and you got to fly a fuck ton to get to that level. But we just have always been. And then when I was in boarding school and then in college, it's just always
you're always moving,
always flying around.
But that was the thing, was when I was a kid, we flew a lot because I would go every summer. I'd go up to Ohio to visit my grandparents and stuff. And when I was a kid, I was the worst on planes. Like, I was like white knuckled, like buried in my seat, like crying the whole time. Like, I could not stand it. And then I got a little bit older and I got a little bit better with it. And then in college, obviously, playing ball and stuff, we fly. And there you can't be scared because you're surrounded by a bunch of other alpha dudes.
Right.
So like you just take that fear and you bury it real
down.
So inside I'm screaming, but on the outside I'm just like, yeah, man, totally. Cool.
It's cool.
Yeah.
Yeah. I used to be super scared of planes, and then I went to flight camp.
Okay.
And like learned how to fly a plane, and I was like, oh, easy.
Yeah.
And then I got over it.
That's the thing is, I had Rob Rowick on here, was studying to be a pilot. And that's what he says. He was just like, yeah, it's one of those things where once you know how it works and you know the wing's not just going to fall off, he's like, then you're fine. Because that's actually my biggest concern is just a part of the plane just dropping out.
Yeah.
Like if this wing falls off, everyone's dead.
But even then, it's like, because you learn that like even when shit like that happens, there's like shit you can do to not die.
Yeah, there's like backup parameters to the
and then,
parameters.
Because part of the flight test, and I wasn't flying the plane this time, but I was with the instructor who did this. You stall out the plane, you go into a tailspin, and you recover. That's part of your flight test, to get your license. So it's like being in that situation where like this is literally what it would feel like to die, and being like, oh wait, no, you can just get out of it.
Oh God! See, knowing that now, I'll probably be better on planes. Just like, knowing that information.
Yeah, it's just like okay.
Yeah.
You know, it's like bloop, and here we go.
Well, and that's the thing is like you see anybody we see it.
And
in
that was in like
stuff.
a rinky like prop plane. Like that's not in like a giant airliner.
Oh, so this wasn't like a simulator. Like you're in a plane and you stalled it out.
Yeah.
Get the fuck out of here.
Yes, that's what happened.
That's terrifying.
I was like 13.
So if you fail, everyone's dead.
Yeah, but like.
They know what they're doing.
You practice it so many times ahead of time that you're like...
God, that's terrifying. Yeah. Speaking of terrifying, let's talk about your last night in Berlin. Berlin.
Yeah, so...
Do you speak German?
Yeah. Ich kann.
A little?
Ein bisschen. That's a little in German.
Oh, I thought ich kann was a little.
No, ich kann is I can.
Oh, see, I was trying to guess to make you think I spoke German.
And it did not.
It failed miserably. Moving on, Berlin.
Yeah.
So you're over there for just study abroad?
Yeah, 4 months. And I did this thing while we were there, which is something I did in college, which I would throw themed holiday parties, but they would be slut themed. So, you know.
Yeah. At that point, DIII athletes, baby.
Yeah. So like slutty Halloween. Slutty.
That's just Halloween now, but
there were rules.
Oh, okay.
Slutty Thanksgiving.
That sounds hilarious.
Which I called Hosegiving. And then, of course, the slutty Christmas party, which was Triple Xmas.
Okay. I thought you were going to go ho-ho-hos on that one.
Triple that was workshopped, but we decided Triple Xmas was better. And... It was always really fun. And we did it in Germany just because it was kind of like...
Who are you there with? Just a bunch of classmates?
Yeah, it was like it's at NYU has these like global campuses, so it's at NYU Berlin. It's
of course, it's at NYU Berlin.
Yeah.
Just side note, I was walking down the street going to a showing in New York City, and there's all these big NYU signs. So I took a picture of it. And I'm like, Daisy, it made me think of you, and you almost had like this like. Ugh. That's the School of Dentistry. Like that's not even
the tone I meant to have.
That's not even like at my NYU. But that's how I read it, and I was like, "How big is this fucking college?"
It's huge, and they're the largest property owners in New York City. So
yeah, and I believe it because I was on the other side of town compared to the last time we went there, and we stayed in Soho and like did a lot of stuff in that area. I kept running into NYU buildings.
Yeah, there's a lot of dorms in Soho.
Okay, that might have been it then.
And then also in Chinatown.
Yeah, and then I was walking in Murray Hill, and I see it, and I'm like, "Oh, NYU, the big purple flag! I got to take a picture and send it to Daisy." And you're like. That's the School of Dentistry?
That was not the tone I sent it with. I was like, oh, that's the School of Dentistry. Like, okay. Here's a helpful explainer.
I totally misread that, and I was just like, yeah, you're right, it is. Sorry.
No, it was not. That was not the tone I sent it in. It was a friendly tone.
So NYU Berlin. So you're there with people you know, so these aren't like total strangers.
Well, yeah. So some of them I knew from my German classes, but then some of them I had never met before. A lot of them were in like the music production school.
Oh, okay.
Because there's like different. Each global location has like a specialty, so different programs have to go there as part of their degree.
Okay.
And they want everyone at NYU to study abroad at least once. So there's a major that actually you study abroad almost your whole time. So you're at a different global campus.
It's got to be super expensive.
It's the same cost. It was cheaper for a semester of NYU Berlin than it was for NYU regular.
Of course it was.
But
NYU, is that you probably said this last time. That's a public school, correct? Technically?
No.
It's a private school.
It's a private school.
Okay.
But then they also have they have a bunch of global campuses that are study abroad sites. So like I also spent time at the one in DC. I did a summer there and a January class term. And then there's also been, then they also have 2 other main campuses that you can get degrees at. So that's NYU Abu Dhabi and NYU Shanghai.
Of course.
So we had kids from Abu Dhabi and Shanghai and Berlin. So it's kind of like everyone can come to one of these global sites.
And now the study abroad situation, is that you just are immersed in the culture? Are you actually
Not
taking
at all.
classes? Are you?
It's just NYU in another
Okay,
country.
so you're not really leaving the campus. You're not really doing.
No, you are like, so it just depends on your level of engagement. So
Okay.
like, there are some people like they have to go because it's in their degree program. So they don't necessarily go do all the other German stuff.
Yeah.
But then there's like German language immersion trips that you take. There's cultural, like I took every single weekend trip that they offered. It's
Isn't
like,
it weird that us as Americans have German language immersion courses, and then when people come to this country as like immigrants and things like that, they just know other language. Like
Yeah.
that's bananas to me. Is that
Yeah.
people like study it in college for years and like go abroad and have to get immersed in the culture and stuff. And then like my grandmother who came over here from Serbia speaks four or 5 languages just off rip, just
Yeah.
knows them.
yeah. I mean, and that also has to do with how they teach languages in other countries starting at an earlier age.
Yeah.
So it's like, then now I'm like, well, I'm fucked.
It's just so
you know?
funny to me where you're like German immersion, and it's like my grandmother speaks German. She's
Yeah.
not even. She's from Serbia, which is way east.
Yeah, right. But you go on like a bike trip and it's all in German, or then, there were times that you go visit another city for a weekend and they're paying for it. So it's like you don't have any out of pocket costs. So
Oh, that's awesome.
I would go on all these trips every single time they popped up because I was like, I'm not going to pass up,
Yeah, and why would you? I mean, if
Well,
the
'cause
school's
then
going
other-
to cover
yeah.
it and it's in your tuition,
And
then-
other kids would be like going to like Morocco for the weekend, or like we're gonna go to Spain, or it's like, I mean, cool if you want to pay the money, even though it is way cheaper to fly around
Yeah.
Europe. I went to Ireland and then I went to.
got to visit the homeland.
I'm not Irish, at all. 0 Irish. None of it. 0. I was visiting.
I'm sorry. Go ahead.
0 Irish. My family is French.
Yeah, totally French. Can totally see it.
100% French. They were Huguenots that fled religious persecution and became fur trappers in the United States.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Oh, you're being serious.
Yes, I'm being 100% serious.
That's cool. Just your alabaster skin and your bright red hair kind of threw me
Okay,
for a loop.
the French are also pale. The French have recessive genes.
That is true. 100%. Name of the episode, 100% not Irish.
I'm just not Irish. Yeah, I went and visited, and then I took like a bus up to Hamburg and visited some. Like, we used to have exchange students when I was in high school. We had 2 German exchange students, so I went and visited them.
Oh, that's cool. Like,
Yeah.
Danke, or whatever it is they say in German.
Yeah, that was thank you.
Yeah, I know that.
Just checking.
That's all I know. Danke. Well, I know a couple other things from studying history, but those aren't things you're allowed to say on hot microphones.
Exactly. Especially not in Germany.
Oh, is it? It's frowned upon over there?
It is more than frowned upon.
Really?
It is illegal to be a Nazi in Germany.
Huh.
Fully illegal.
Fun fact, did you know Hitler is not even German?
Yes. Austrian.
Oh, I know you would know that. That's more for you listeners. Wait, hang on. Sidebar. We're going to get into your last night in Berlin. But as a student of history, I find this fascinating. So they're not... I kind of want to take it down this road, even though it's probably ill-advised.
Okay.
So they lose a war in a horrific manner.
Yeah.
And the League of Nations, then the UN, strips them of everything. And they don't have statues like...
So they
Remember-
don't, no,
remember?
they have lots of, I mean, they have a big, what they call like remembrance culture, especially in Berlin.
Okay.
So, I mean, everywhere you walk, literally everywhere. I mean, there's gold stepping stones on the sidewalks to mark where Jewish people lived who were killed in the camps.
Okay.
And so, I mean, and there's memorials to all different types of victims of the Holocaust.
But these are victims. They don't celebrate.
And it's not like in the United States where we have like Confederate
That's where
monuments.
I was going.
None of that. I mean, it is, everything is
I can't
stricken.
remember where I heard it, but it was probably a comic on a podcast. But they're like, if you lose, like, why would you want to remember that?
No, all that shit is torn down. All that is replaced with remembering victims.
The victims, okay.
I mean, it is,
which makes a lot more sense in my opinion. Which
yeah,
is,
I mean, it's to the point where it's like, I mean, literally anywhere you turn, it's, you know,
never forget.
It is truly like you all need to be 100% aware of what this country did.
Okay.
It's very interesting coming from America and seeing that and
how we
like,
bury a lot of that stuff.
Well, how we do the opposite, where it's like, look how proud we are of these people that owned slaves and did a war for their states' rights to own slaves. Like, it's so.
Yeah, it's one of those things. I've got that book, Free Soil, Free Labor, Free Men, by McPherson, and it's really crazy because in that he talks about, like, it's just entries from letters about, like, people, you know, basically saying, like, I'm gonna have to kill my brother, and you read these and how they spoke in the time, and you're just like, that's like, how do you think that this is okay? And now fast forward, you know, a couple hundred years, and people are like, that's just my heritage. It's like, you have no idea what the fuck they were talking about.
No concept, yeah.
But so in Germany, it's quite the opposite. They celebrate the victims and want to remember, and almost have almost like a black cloud over their heads constantly for what they have done.
Oh yeah, and it's not just like, I mean, the Holocaust is a huge part of that, but it's also like the Berlin Wall, and like there's all these like memorials to people who were shot trying to cross the wall, and there's, you know, these big installation art pieces to like remember the wall, and there's sections that are still up, and there's just it is a culture that is very aware of its history in a way that the United States has never been, and it's really fascinating. That is
something I find fascinating. And also, for those of you listening, I know Daisy knows this, but Germany, once again, is the strongest economy in Europe. It's where the European Bank is, Germany.
Yeah. I mean, they have, it's a very interesting case study to look at Germany.
Just Germany in just its recent history, going from the First World War, getting stripped of everything, and then this plucky Austrian chancellor. I
don't know if I'd use the word plucky.
This, what is this? I mean,
it's like
the guy could get a crowd going. Is all I'm trying to say.
I'm not saying that's not plucky.
This knucklehead, this chancellor, and this knucklehead comes in from Austria, gets elected was elected by the people.
Yeah.
To fix the fact that they were torn way down, and was like, no, never again are we gonna do this. Anyway, we're gonna get off this topic. We'll get back to the last night in Berlin, but it is a fascinating case study.
Yeah.
Anybody out there listening who has any interest in history, because they go from one of the strongest countries to a weak country back to
one of the strongest,
way stronger than anybody anticipated. In fact, they were getting war meetings before World War II. They were getting laughed out, saying like Germany's not going to do anything.
The New York Times right now has a very interesting podcast series called Day X. It's on like the Daily, where they're talking about, there's like a kind of, like in many countries right now, a surge of the far right. There's a far right surge happening in Germany right now, and they actually just they're arresting and prosecuting a former German soldier, like current German soldier, for domestic terrorism because he was doing like alt-right shit.
Oh wow!
So it's called Day X. It's very interesting.
So, shouts out Day X. Check that out. Anyway, back to what this podcast is about.
Sorry.
Every time you and I get together, we always do this. But I enjoy it. And you guys just learned something. So, you know what?
Yeah. It's a taste of the NYU education.
Yeah. Well, I'm public school of Florida, but go Owls. Oh.
I don't know what our mascot is.
NYU, isn't it?
It's either the Violets
we did this last
or
time.
The Bobcats.
I know we did this last time. So you're in Berlin, you're doing all these tours, you're seeing everything, and then talk about the sex parties, or not sex parties, the sexy parties.
So there are sex parties in Berlin. I didn't go to one. There's like sex clubs and stuff.
Now, is this something that other like classmates are doing, or is this just something you guys hear about?
Oh, other classmates are doing it, and then I'm just...
Bobcat is the answer.
Oh, okay. But I don't think that was never a thing.
I just typed in NYU mascot and it says Bobcat.
Okay, I think they say Go Violets, but the mascot is some sort of cat.
Yeah. According to this, it's a bobcat.
I had no clue. Anyway, so we're having the triple Xmas party, but yeah, sex party
Hang
clubs.
on. I'm sorry. We'll get back to the sex parties. Everyone's like, nobody gives a shit about this. Get back to the sex parties. All right. So for more than a century, NYU athletes have worn violet and white colors in competition and have carried the resulting nickname, the Violets, with pride. Today, the Bobcat mascot symbolizes both NYU's academic and athletic tradition. So they were just nicknamed the Violets, but the Bobcat is the actual mascot.
Okay.
So, sex parties, Berlin.
Yeah. So there's like sex clubs, because clubbing is really big in Berlin. Which
I've seen Euro Trip.
Okay. Not the same. But those were fun. I mean, I would go clubbing not as frequent. Like some people went every night. I did not go that frequently. I mean, there's no open container laws in Berlin, so you can just like walk around and drink. So yeah. I mean, pretty regularly, like we'd go to a club.
18 is the drinking age, I assume?
16.
16, okay.
For beer, and then 18 for liquor. But yeah, so you go to a club, on Friday night, you get a stamp, you stay until Saturday at like 8 a.m., go home, eat, shower, get dressed again, go back to the same club with your stamp, because the parties are like 2 to 3 days long.
Get the fuck out of here.
So then you go back to the club. So
what is it? Just a lot of like dun 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 bam 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 bam.
It's just more like bum 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 bum.
Yeah, we love it.
But everyone's just sitting there like dancing, like swaying. Like there's no. It's just like it's not how like clubbing is in the United States. It's just heavy techno music. People are there to see the DJs.
Okay.
And then drink gin and tonics.
So big music culture.
Yeah.
Like they just want to hear the DJ.
Yeah, and like there's also like lots of drugs at those, and then the fetish clubs and the sex clubs. I mean, people are like having sex.
Well,
but, yeah. I was like, I am not comfortable with that. I grew up Southern Baptist. I will be staying home. Have fun, guys.
You had friends going to sex clubs?
Oh yeah.
What was that like? Like when they come back? Like to me, it's weird.
Oh, the worst story I heard. So this guy went to the bathroom.
Yeah.
Guy went to the bathroom, and people are like, "Hey, if it's comfortable with you, can you just pee on me? Like if you're gonna be peeing anyways, will you just pee on me? It's like my fetish." And they're like, I mean, I guess. And then like in some of them, I forget which club this was, but there's like the place to pee is a like kind of a metal grate, and there's just like people underneath.
I don't like where this is going.
Yeah.
I'm not fetish shaming anybody.
I am.
I don't.
I am. It's gross.
Every time I told Savanna this when we first got together, I was like, whatever you want to do, as long as it's not poop and pee.
Yeah, well, a lot of pee. All the stories I heard were pee related.
Well, and then, Germany's really known. I mean, I don't know if it's just like a stereotype or what, but whenever people talk about poopy porn, it's always German stuff.
I didn't know that, but I'm excited.
I'm plugged in. I'm plugged into the
You're plugged in.
zeitgeist.
Okay.
So
German word.
So you guys are partying a lot during your whole stay there.
Yeah.
What was the last night like? Was that like a big blowout?
Yeah. So that was the triple Xmas party.
Okay.
I was on the same last night.
Oh yeah, because you're there for the fall semester.
Yeah. So this was December. I want to say 18th or 19th that we're leaving.
Okay.
So last night we're throwing the slutty Christmas party. We made spiked hot chocolate.
Ooh.
Which I was always in charge of the drink menu, so I always came through.
Spiked hot chocolate sounds good.
Yeah.
What'd you spike it with?
I don't remember. I just got whatever the cheapest thing was at the grocery store.
Probably like some vodka or something.
Yeah. I mean, I used to get fucking blasted in Germany off of 99-cent vodka that I got at Lidl, which is it's like an even shittier version of Aldi. I was like right next to the dorm. And it would freeze when you put it in the freezer, and it tasted like jet fuel. And it would make. One time I drank a whole handle of it, and I was hungover for 3 days.
Yeah, that's called alcohol poisoning.
Yeah, it was bad. And then I did get alcohol poisoning, actual alcohol poisoning, at a different from the gin.
In Germany.
In Germany, also from.
Like rush to the hospital kind of situation.
Yeah, I had to go to the hospital. There were like 4 of us that had to go. Because it was just bad. It was just bad, not clarified or fully alcohol.
Well, and gin you have to be careful with because there's so many botanicals and stuff in it that
Yeah.
could go sideways real quick.
Yeah. So I couldn't even drink gin the rest of the time I was there, which
Yeah, I
upset
can
me because
imagine.
I'm a gin fan.
Really?
Yes, that's my
Mint julep?
that is my preference. Gin is my preference.
It would be.
But then I went to a thanks.
I don't even know that.
I went to because then
That's the school of dentistry.
that's not the tone.
I'm
But
here with my gin and tonic, you stupid plebeian.
Moving on.
So triple Xmas.
Yeah. So, it gets really, we're all wearing sweaters because it's cold outside. And I was wearing
I thought that part of the world it was flipped. Oh no, that's the Southern Hemisphere. I'm sorry, that's Australia.
That would be if I was at NYU Sydney.
Okay.
I was not. NYU Berlin, which is basically the same weather as New York City.
I thought it was flipped there. God, I amaze myself sometimes.
How many
stupid
concussions
I
have you had?
8 majors.
Okay, there we go. Makes sense. But yeah, so we're just getting getting trashed. It's my flight's at 5 a.m, so we got to leave at 4.
Yeah.
And there's places where people have gotten weed, like figured out, of course all the stoners figured out where to buy weed like immediately.
Yeah, it's just something you just feel it when you get there.
I've never like illegally bought drugs.
Okay.
So I'm like, I have no.
You don't have a radar for it.
I have no fucking clue.
I'm not
like,
a big weed guy, and those are normally like the chiller people. But I could spot you a heroin dealer in a second.
No, I have no fucking clue. I have no idea. No concept. No one ever offered me anything. So I'm just kind of like, well, okay.
I guess not.
But yeah, so I had probably 5 or 6 hot chocolates. I got super hot. And then I just took my sweater off and was just walking around in my bra and jeans.
Cold.
But we're inside.
In Berlin. Okay,
we're inside. And everyone is like, why do you have your shirt off? And I was like, I'm hot. And then I got into like 3 fights.
And they're like, yeah, but why do you have your shirt off? Oh!
Hey. Oh.
Perfect politics. Super hot girl.
That's me. And then I got into like 3 fights with people. I confronted all the dudes I had tried to hit on while I was staying there. All the other guys like at NYU Berlin.
Love it when you do shit like this.
And I was
I've
like,
seen you do shit like this.
And I was like, why didn't you text me back? Will?
What did Will say?
He was like, why are you being mean to me? And I was like, you know why.
You know why.
And he's like, what's your beef with me? And I was like, you know my beef with you. And like I did that like
that's fun.
To like 2 other people. Burned my bridges.
Yeah. Then the bridges we burn light the way.
Then I got high.
Ooh.
And then
plot twist.
Yeah. Which was only like the third. I mean, I just don't get high that often. So it was like the third time I'd done it while I was in Berlin because the people I was friends with mainly were stoners. And then I went back to my dorm room. Then I broke the sink in my bathroom because I sat on it. Then I overslept. And we had to rush to the airport.
But you still got your flight.
But I still got my
first
flight.
class flight.
And
baby.
then I got my
They'll
first
hold
class
a plane
flights.
for a first class passenger.
They really will. But the plane hadn't even like pulled in by the point I got there. Like they weren't even letting people in yet. So
that's
I was
the
like,
thing that's so frustrating is they're like,
we don't
get
need
to the
to
airport
rush
2 hours before, and then like my flight to New York, I was so concerned about being late because it was at 6 a.m. that I left here. It's only a 30-minute drive, but I left here at like 4:45 because I was like, I got to get through security, got to make sure everything's right. It's Jacksonville. It took me 7 minutes to get through security.
Yeah. No, I love how close I live to the airport now because I'm like, I can just leave like 45 minutes before. Like, I'm the person who's like, I only need like 30 minutes to get through.
When I got to, when I was having so many problems with the subway and the AirTran and everything on my way to JFK, that one, because I was visiting that apartment right before I went. So that one, I had to leave by 5. I didn't get on the train until like 5:40 to like start heading that way. So I'm like, shit, I'm cutting it way too close. But JFK is a busy airport.
Yeah.
So when you get there, all of a sudden you hit that security wall. It's not like Jacksonville. Even Orlando goes pretty quick because there's so many people.
Yeah.
But JFK, it's just like, and you're like, So I was like running to the gate, and I got there, and we still had like 40 minutes before we left.
Yeah, I big believer in not rushing unless they're like calling people over the intercom.
Yeah. The only time that's ever happened to me was Charlotte.
Yeah.
They were over the intercom.
Charlotte is a inefficient airport.
Yeah, because their times are always so whack compared to everything else. And it's like, oh, this is convenient. It's only like a 30-minute layover. It's like, yeah, but if one little thing goes wrong on the plane and you're stuck on the tarmac for 15 minutes, you missed your flight.
Yeah.
And that's what happened to me in Charlotte when I was coming from Dayton, was that whole like final boarding call, flight blah, blah, blah to Jacksonville. And I'm like sprinting.
Yeah.
Like, wait.
That's when you got to get your flight attendant to call their flight. It's a whole thing.
That was a mess. But
yeah.
You made it to the airport. You made it back to NYU. Mm-hmm. Now, while you're at NYU, this is a story that I've been deeply interested in.
Yeah.
Because you brought it up. We're all standing outside. I can't remember if it was Rain Dogs or Paper Route or somewhere. But you started telling someone this story, and I said, wait a second. You've been on my show before, and this never came up.
Yeah, so this was my first year at NYU.
Okay, so this is before Berlin.
This is before Berlin. And, I was a D1 athlete at Kansas. And then when I went to NYU, I joined their club rowing team.
Yeah, we did talk about that last time.
Which I was like, this will be fun.
Yeah.
Whatever.
There's only one Division I
sport at NYU.
Fencing.
And it is fencing.
I remember.
Yeah.
I listen. When you talk, I listen.
Thank you. I appreciate it. That's something I feel like the men in this scene all respect me, which I am cool with. But sometimes I wish it's a little too respectful. Everyone's listening a little too much. I could stand to be disrespected a little bit. But moving on. It's just a beef I have. Just saying. So, excuse me. So we all decided to go to a student athlete party at NYU.
Now, how parties work there? Because at FAU, it's houses, dorm rooms, things like that. So I assume the dorm room party dynamic is pretty much the same. But it's still fucking New York City.
Yeah.
Like, for those of you listening who have never been, take it from me. Like, you'll turn a corner and there's a building for NYU, but it's still in a New York City neighborhood. Even if it's a nice neighborhood, there's still sketchy fucking people around there.
Yeah. So this was not at any house. Like, I would go to apartment parties, house parties type stuff.
Yeah.
And it's just crowded. I mean,
because those apartments aren't very big.
Because imagine a regular house party with a third of the space.
Yeah.
Same amount of people. It's just fucking sweaty, disgusting. I
like one of those Berlin sex clubs.
Sure. I wouldn't know, but sure.
You said sweaty, disgusting. So that's what I want.
I bet they're probably pretty well air conditioned.
The sex clubs?
It seems like they would care about comfort.
Yeah.
Yeah.
More so than college students at NYU.
Yes. I didn't have AC in my dorm, so.
That was a big sticking point, was when I was looking at apartments, was finding ones with those little AC units in them.
Yeah, it's hard. I mean, you can always get one, but it's still I don't want to do that. But I was not even allowed to put a window unit in my dorm because it was the eco dorm. So we couldn't have we couldn't have that. There was an elevator we couldn't use.
Oh my God.
And I was on the third floor. I was like, this is a fucking nightmare. Sometimes I would just go into the stairwell and just sit there and be like,
fuck this place.
I can't do it.
Not today.
I'll fake an injury. And then my friend broke her leg and they still made her take the stairs. They wouldn't let her take the elevator.
Wow.
Yeah. That's how committed to being eco-friendly. Fuck the planet. Okay.
Fuck the planet.
Let me use the goddamn elevator. So we all go to this student athlete shebang, and it's in a building that is under construction.
Okay.
It's a huge apartment, but completely empty. So, and still kind of being built or
under
renovated.
Construction, are they renovating it or are they just building?
So they're renovating and then adding to the top. So there's scaffolding.
Where's this at?
This was in a weird spot. I mean, I want to say it was a little bit south of Midtown. I mean, it was not in an NYU area.
Yeah, because the NYU almost sticks to the outer banks, like Murray Hill. Am I wrong?
Yeah, I mean, it's mostly centralized around Washington Square Park and then south.
And then
but there's a location right by Union Square. There's the Palladium, which used to be a nightclub, and then they turned it into their athletic center / dorm / dining hall. And then there's also some stuff like the med school and the dental school are more up. But this was in a weird spot, but it was, somebody on whatever D3 team there knew someone, or maybe
you just walk around with disdain. I know we did touch on it last time, but you're just like, I went from being a Division I scholarship athlete to a club rower.
Well, because then at this party, right, these guys are like, oh, what sport you do? I'm like, oh, I'm a rower. They're like, oh, that's a club team. And I was like, fuck you. I was a Division I athlete at the University of fucking Kansas. I was a recruited Division I scholarship athlete. And they're like, well, you're no one now. And I'm like, because I was raped. Because I had to leave.
I know we're not supposed to laugh at that, but that's like doing your mom a joke, and the guy's like, my mom's dead.
But people would be so hostile towards me about it. So I, of course, would...
Did you throw that out there? Did you say, yeah, because I was raped?
Yeah, and I did not make a lot of friends at this party. Yeah. But so we show up a little bit late, and everyone's already trashed. They're already out of alcohol, because all these D3 motherfuckers don't know how to plan a party with an appropriate amount of alcohol for athletes who binge drink. Yeah. It's like, should have called me.
Us D1 athletes, we know.
You 2 handles per person.
Per person.
That's
once we get going.
Then you'll have leftovers, potentially. Yeah. So
the next day when you wake up, hair of the dog.
Hair of the dog. So it's like none of these people have any dynamics of how a athlete party works. And the fact that they called it an athlete party also bothered me. I'm like, none of you really know what athleticism looks like. Okay, maybe the fencers.
Maybe.
At an Olympic level, sure, but not right now. Oh. So
it's so weird the amount, like the drop off between D1 athletes, even if you go to a smaller D1 school.
Yeah.
Like FAU, if you put them up against like any, especially now with the recruiting that they've done, any D2 or under school, they would destroy them.
Yeah.
And people are like, well, what about Mount Union? They're D3 and they've won like 1,000. It's like, no.
It's
like
different.
The level of athlete is so significantly different.
It's the difference between, your freshman JV squad and your senior varsity.
Yeah, exactly.
It's it's just it's a difference in skill, ability,
it's like
talent.
When people say like, oh, this college team might be able to beat the worst pro team. It's like, there's no fucking way.
Yeah.
And there's no way.
No way.
Like the difference. So you're at a D3 athlete party.
And there's so these people, they're out. Well, and this is where the joke about me going up to the guy who was like 6'10".
Yeah.
The fucked up face, shoulder length red hair, and I was like, I was trying to hit on him, and then he was like, "Fuck off." He was also wearing
me, but stronger.
You're me, but stronger. But then everyone at this party is like out on the scaffolding and on the fire escape, which like you are not supposed to do. And the people running the party are like, you guys have to come inside. No one's coming inside.
So is that a New York thing where you're not supposed to be out on the fire escape unless it's like an emergency or?
Right. But they're out on the scaffolding too, which is the bigger problem.
Because it's under construction. Yeah.
Yeah. So you're 100% not supposed to be on the scaffolding. And also they're being loud. They're screaming. They're playing music. They're being boisterous.
This is an apartment. So there's neighbors up.
There's people
left,
around,
right, up, down,
across, whatever.
Yeah.
People are mad. So they call the cops. And everyone, as soon as they hear the cops are going, sprints out. Which, as a student athlete who's been to a house party, that's not what you do.
That is not what you do.
So, like 30 drunk as shit girls run out, and they all get arrested.
Yep.
And
you just sit there. We're just chilling.
I'm like, what you have to do, you send out your 2-3 most sober people. And
figure this out. And
you go talk to the cops, and you say, hey, man, I'm sorry. We'll turn on the music. We'll make sure everyone gets off the scaffolding. I'm really sorry. Mm-hmm. And then that way, all your friends don't get fucking arrested.
Yep.
Especially if you're with other athletes. You're trying to mitigate the damage to your other athletes. I mean, I remember at Kansas, they handed me a card with they were like, here's a sheet. And you can't keep it, but I'm going to leave it here if you want to take a picture of numbers of people to call if you get in trouble. And it's like,
Oh, yeah. We had that meeting, too.
And you can't keep the card, but you can take a picture. It's like, I'm just going to leave the room. Wink, wink. And, you're supposed to, write down the information. And, it's lawyers, it's doctors, it's all sorts of different people.
A lot of people who happen to be boosters of the program as well.
Yeah, just a lot of people who are there to help you if you get in trouble. But there's nothing like that for the D3 students, and no one ever told them.
They don't even know what a booster is.
No clue, and like they have no concept of like how to get out of trouble or how to do things that like will prevent you from hurting yourself or others in any way, whether that be physically or reputation wise or whatever. And so it ends up that like the whole party gets busted. I mean, people are getting arrested like left and right. And then I'm like, we are going out through the back. And like, I like take us downstairs. I'm like, we have to look so normal.
Yeah.
Take off your hats, just like be boring and bland.
So when you say out the back, because there's no back doors, you're in a building.
Well, so there was a door there were two doors at this apartment because it was like a nice place. So there's like
a lot of times they'll take two apartments and knock down walls and make it one apartment.
That's kind of was the vibe here.
Okay.
This was a huge build / renovation. So basically we went through the back door to exit on the other street, and we did not get arrested. But I remember just being like so angry at them, at all these other people. I'm like, rookie shit.
Yeah, rookie mistakes.
Rookie shit. Like, we are all drunk, but like there's someone here who's less drunk than other people. Have like just like,
what's going on? What's going on, officer?
And it's like very clear also that there's no like frat bros at this party that would have known to do that too. And it's like, I don't know. It just really bugged me because then all these people who were athletes at NYU all are fucking getting arrested. And it was like a big fucking deal and everyone got in trouble. And it was like, you could have not gotten in trouble had you because I remember I was standing at the door and I was like, do not leave. You will get arrested if you leave.
Nobody move. Yeah.
And they were like, no, I have to leave. I'm like, I don't know what the fuck you're saying, but you absolutely should not leave.
You cannot go out there.
And then they didn't follow my advice.
Yeah, it's interesting because when I remember very specifically a very, very specific house party we were at. And I just remember this because it was off campus at one of the seniors' house. And this is in college. And I think I'm a freshman or a sophomore. And it was an upperclassman's house. And I remember the cop showed up and all the younger kids ran.
Yeah.
And then there's the upperclassmen and the athletes. We were all just kind of sitting. And I remember when the cops showed up, they looked at us and they were like, we're not doing anything wrong. You guys just hang out.
Yeah.
And my first instinct was like, oh my God, we got to go. And they're like, just sit the fuck down.
Yeah.
And then the cops came in the house. They're like, hey, what's going on? And then they're talking to them. They're like, well, everyone's got to leave. And then they're arguing with the cops. They're like, no, this is my house. We're of age, even though most of us weren't. But they're like, we're of age. We're hanging out. Like, you can't, like, we'll let all the tertiary people, like, go. But these are fellow, like, teammates. Like, they're not leaving. Yeah. And the cops were like, all right, well, as long as everyone else gets out of here. And I was like, you can fucking do that?
You can do that. I mean, it's just, especially when it comes to, like, them breaking up, like, drunk parties and shit, like they don't care that much, but if you're gonna make a problem, then they're making it your problem too.
That's exactly what they're looking for. If you're gonna make that's why I get so frustrated when people want to argue or get loud, which is ironic because I used to be the most argumentative loud person. But now that I'm sober, even before I got sober, even when I was just like wanting to drink by myself, if I'd go to a bar for some reason but other people around me were getting loud, I'd be like why what the fuck? You're just inviting problems now.
Yeah.
Because you want to be argumentative and you need to be the center of it. Oh, look at me, which is, again, ironic, seeing as what we do as comedians. But, like, at the same time, it's like, just chill the fuck out.
Well, and maybe you can relate to this, too. I mean, people, especially when I, like, do comedy, people, like, expect me to be, like, on all the time as a person. And I'm like, I
can totally relate to that.
I'm not going to be on with some random motherfucker who recognized me on the street. Oh my God, this guy recognized me at the show on Thursday. And he came up to me and he's like, I've seen you do comedy. I like you so much more because you do the real shit. You're saying the truth. You're doing the true shit. And I was like, when have I ever spoken, quote, truth to power, unquote? And I went backstage to complain to Buck, and he's like, well, when you first started and you're doing all those rape jokes, I mean, that's some truth telling. And I'm like, but when have I done that? In the last, like, year, when this guy when he would recognize me.
Yeah.
And I was like, I am not that person, like, 24/7, and I'm absolutely not that person, like, when I'm not on stage.
Yeah.
It really bothered me. I'm like, I am unimportant. Nothing I say adds value.
That's a big thing that happens. It's interesting you bring that up because at work, Matt Anderson, big friend of the show, been on the show before, but at work, when new people start, I always bring up the comedy thing. And then they're like, oh, you do comedy? And Matt will always be like, yeah, you couldn't have guessed that, could you? And it's like, yeah, because I'm not my stage presence isn't the same thing like when I'm walking around. Like, given the things I want to talk about, I'll talk about like off stage.
Yeah.
Like my alcoholism and like drug addiction and things like that. Like, I'll talk about that whenever. But the actual like, hey, like the high energy, like, what the fuck? Like, I channel it on stage more to be like a fun, high energy thing. When I'm off stage, it's mainly like anger. Like anger is my default setting. Yeah. So you would never guess like I'm a happy like comedy guy.
But then I kind of have the opposite where like somebody told me, which I think is kind of true, although that was not my aim. But they're like you're always funnier when you seem like you hate everyone in the audience.
Yeah.
And when you have just like this indignant like
when you get up there and someone like shouts something out and you're just like, ugh.
Yeah, and
I love that.
But it always ends up having like great energy. But then, sometimes people will be like afraid to talk to me because they think I'm like mean or something. And
well,
it's
we
like,
talked about it the first episode. I thought you hated me for the longest time.
Yeah, but people think of that about me, and it's like I'm not nice, but I'm not mean.
You got that New York energy, baby.
But I mean, I've always been like that, where it's like I'm not gonna go out of my way to talk to somebody who I've seen do comedy twice, but like I'm not gonna be mean to you when you do talk to me.
Yeah, exactly.
I mean,
but
like,
you can be intimidating. I know we.
Yeah,
we get that a lot.
like there was a guy. So my first show, Bag of Rain Dogs, like I did a set and it went okay, and this guy came up to me and he was like, you're gonna get there. And I was like, excuse me?
Oh my god, I'd fucking murder somebody.
I was like, excuse me? And he was like, yeah, I've been doing this for about 6 months, and like you just gotta keep writing, like you'll get there.
Who was it? Please tell me who it was.
I don't even know who it fucking was because I've never seen him again. So, and he's like sitting there lecturing me, and then
probably a Creative Veins fucker.
Probably. So then Trevor's sitting there, and then Marcus was there too, I'm pretty sure. And they both just kind of look at this guy like, you should really put those words back into your mouth. Like, and like they kind of were expecting me to like blow up at this guy, which like if I was on stage, like maybe in a situation like that, I would blow up. But I was kind of like, okay, yeah. I'll keep writing. Thanks for the advice.
Thanks for the tip.
And I mean, I don't know. There's all these new people that have started, and I hate all of them.
Yeah.
And I hope they all hear this.
They will.
And they know that I hate them.
All of them?
All of them.
Good.
I can't think of one that I. Yeah.
That's it. That's the episode. Plug everything one more time.
You can follow me on Twitter, Instagram, and TikTok at Fat Steve Buscemi. At Fat Steve Buscemi. That is where you can find me on social media. I post shows when I'm doing shows on all those. I've been recognized from my apparently funny Instagram stories several times over the last week. So
there you go. Get you some.
Something to keep in mind.
Boom. Beautiful. Thank you, everybody, so much for listening. Follow me on all social media at Brennan T Comedy. Check out the website, brennantcomedy.com. No dates coming up. The Farewell to Florida tour will be over when you hear this, so I have no dates for the foreseeable future. I'm going to be focused in on working a little bit more, saving up some money, and getting ready for the move. Next time I do, I might tag a couple open mics here and there while I'm still in town, but no big shows until I get up to New York City. Subscribe, rate, and review. Also, subscribe on Patreon, patreon.com/Brennan Tassif. And also, if you really like the show or if you just mildly like it, go check out the merch. We have an awesome merch store. I wear the shit all the time because it's actually super comfortable. BrennanTComedy.com/merch store. Thank you again so much, everyone, for listening. Thank you to my guest, Daisy Tackett. It's a Tackett Tuesday attack, baby.
Tackett Tuesday.
Talk to y'all next week.